Please subscribe to hear more Cryptid Tales. If you like the story you heard, give us a thumbs up and feel free to leave us a comment. If you'd like to hear your own cryptid encounter on Cryptid Tales, send us an email at cryptidtalesmail@gmail.com. My experiences would start as a child of around 5 years of age, but continue for many years to come. I was born in 1959. When I was a little girl growing up in West Auburn, Maine, we lived in the country. We had a horse farm and 60 acres of woods, which included 2 ponds and a large stream behind our 4 pastures. During those younger years of my life, I was visited often by what I thought was a nightmare. I remember a gorilla at my bedroom window, and I would start screaming out of fear. I was scared to death. My bedroom was on the 2nd story, and this thing's face took up the whole window. For many years, I thought I was dreaming it, but the dream seemed to happen all the time. Until in recent years, when I read that Sasquatch liked to look in the windows of children, and it was then I realized that I was not dreaming, but they had approached me in my younger years. I spent a lot of time in our woods riding my horse cross-country skiing or just on long walks and digging for old bottles. There were a lot of eerie silences at times. I never thought too much about it then, or the bent over trees or tree breaks. It was just part of my surroundings. At a different time of my life, in 1979, I had some friends that lived in Sebago Lake in Maine. They lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods on a long hilly road, only traveled by its residents, so you could go up and down it and not expect to see any other cars. I was driving up there one night. It was curvy, and I was coming around the last bend in the road, and there on the side of the road was an at least 8 to 10 foot tall, huge Bigfoot. He was massive. The Bigfoot was a brownish blonde color, with a heavy brow and high cheekbones. It looked sort of bearded and like he had long bangs. He looked both ape-like and human-like. His face looked kind, but I was pretty freaked out when my headlights were on him. We made eye contact as I drove by within just 10 feet of him. I just sped up and flew into my friend's driveway, ran in saying, "I just saw a huge Bigfoot." My third encounter was around that same time, maybe a year later. This happened in North Gorham, Maine. We had a pig roast up on our hill at our cabin, which was very rustic. There was plastic on the windows, a rope handle on the door, and a metal ladder going to the 2nd floor, which was our bedroom. I had a friend visiting from Colorado, and my boyfriend and his friends went out on the snowmobiles. We were hanging out inside the cabin, and we started hearing these guttural growls like no noise I had ever heard before or since. It got louder and louder, and then it started making these kind of screams. The cabin began to shake, and we could see claws coming through the plastic on the windows. I ran towards the door and put the broom handle through the rope handle on the door. As I did, something was pulling and shaking the door on the other side. Every time we changed our position in the cabin, that side would start getting attacked. We were crazy scared out of our minds. My boyfriend had a gun, and even though I had never used one before, I suddenly and instinctively knew how to load it. But neither one of us were going to step a foot outdoors to use it. We climbed the ladder, and whatever that screeching thing was, landed on the roof above us. Those screams were the scariest thing I have ever heard. They would be impossible to repeat. Just as we thought we were going to die, we could hear the snowmobiles coming back, and whatever that thing was ran off. We told the guys what just happened, and they went out to look for tracks. They thought we were crazy until they saw the claw marks on the plastic-covered windows. I moved out to Colorado and spoke to a gal out there about my experiences. She told me she had a telepathic experience through the window with a Sasquatch. She was going up her stairs, and there on the landing between stairs was a Sasquatch in her window. It said they want to communicate with people, but because of their size and scary appearance, humans just run or shoot at them. It conveyed that there were once dinosaurs and other animals that have gone extinct, and they are here to warn us of what's to come. They had to look enough like us, but also be of a prehistoric man with its survival instincts. I had put those experiences out of my head, buried them until I heard other people speaking of their experiences, and it all started coming back to me. Before I tell my story, there are some things that you might want to know. I am Native American, a Yavapai, who are also known as the Mojave and Yuma Apache from southern Arizona. As a Native American, we are born with gifts of spiritual powers. Those that choose to follow this path take on great responsibilities. Being a Yavapai, the people were called dreamers by the first explorers, which meant we dream of many things. The term dreamer really means we have the ability to travel in spirit to many places and see and hear things around the world. Some of us also have the ability to talk to each other while we are away, as well as talk to the ones we love when separated. I grew up as many children did. We would play baseball in the vacant lot down the street, fight bullies, play King of the Hill, and race our skateboards down the steep streets without killing ourselves, without helmets or knee pads. For me, and unlike other children, I remember being attacked by dark spirits every night at a very young age. When I became older, these dreams did not stop, and I learned quickly how to fight back and protect myself. I also remember getting up in the morning and heading to the bathroom to look in the mirror. One morning, looking in the mirror, I discovered my hair color had gone from sandy blonde to a yellow blonde color overnight. Several times I woke to discovering new scars on my face that was not there before. The scars looked like they had been there for years, completely healed, but the marks remained. It was about 8 years ago. I could not take it anymore. Becoming an old man now, and having been hunted by these spirits all my life, I left in my spirit to a time when the trees grew high in the sky, and mankind did not walk on this world yet. Finally, I found peace. I did not know where I was or the time. I just felt that it must have been a time after another blue planet had passed by this one that caused the volcanoes to explode into the sky that killed the dinosaurs, but a time before the great giants fell from the sky, and the water from the other blue planet poured onto this one that filled the sky and began the Great Flood. And it was before some people in the future traveled back in time to change the DNA of the first ones, changing the native people forever. Basking in the peace of this place, I gathered small twigs and leaves, and finding a small piece of flint, I managed to get a small fire started. I remember sitting next to the fire, watching the small flames flicker, feeling peace, when I saw 4 large beings walking on a trail towards me. They looked like what many people call Sasquatches, but they had white-colored hair. They were very tall, maybe 8 feet, maybe more. I watched in amazement as they passed by me, following a trail that led next to my camp and through the woods. When the 4th was about to pass me, he turned and came over to me and held out his hand, closed, as if he wanted to give me something. I held out my hand, palm facing up, when he let a small, white, and perfectly round, shiny stone roll into my hand. After he left, I again sat down and went to look into the fire, when I discovered he had put the fire out and was telling me that this was not their way. Before this, I have never seen or believed there were such creatures as Sasquatches. Everything I saw on TV about them seemed like hoaxes. Thinking the whole time while I was watching, these were people wanting 15 minutes of fame. And for the stone, I carried it everywhere and thought for a long time that maybe he gave it to me so that he would know me in the future. Later, when one day I was holding the stone in my hand and remembering the long-haired one, I realized that he had put his memories of his life into the stone, as we do today when we write about our memories in books. Learning well what Chief Foolscrow had taught me about the power of stones, I looked and saw his life. I saw back to when he was suckling on his mother's breast and his adventures as he grew up. Their hearts were always filled with love for all life. They did not hunt or eat meat, but instead ate fruits and plants that grew everywhere all year long. Their children played like children today, running around chasing each other and running through the forest. There were no winners, as in a tropical climate, or enemies, and they never lacked anything. They were simple and only knew the love of their people. These four were the last of their group. When the others came and enslaved these people, the other ship was destroyed that killed everyone in the explosion, except these four who managed to escape out of the mountain. He had no children, as he was captured at a younger age and not permitted to do so. Others from other camps did survive. It was several years later when I saw this man, the long hair, again. I had somehow managed to return, or was called, to the spot from before when he came to me. I reached out my hand and returned the stone to him, saying thank you. Just then, a portal of white light opened and he began walking through it. As he neared the end, he stopped and turned, and then signaled for me to follow. I answered, "I cannot. I am not done yet." I know he felt the great sadness in my heart for not being able to go with him. As the years race by me now, I know it won't be long before I see him and his people again. Maybe I'll just visit a while before I go to my own relatives. In closing, I want to thank you for listening to my story, and hope that someday people will not fear or try to kill what they do not understand. Lastly, since their arrival to this world, they have never killed another animal or person.